Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Freddy and today I'll be talking about this really awesome book. It's called We Need New Names by NoViolet Bulawayo. This was actually one of the books that I brought to work so that I could read during lunchtime, and I thought that it was the right book because this book, the language is really accessible. It's really easy to understand. Basically, the story is written from the point of view of a child. So the language there is definitely quite simple, but it's really interesting to see how this book, how the stuff that is happening in this book is being told from the lens of a child. So NoViolet Bulawayo is actually a writer from Zimbabwe, and this book was published in 2014, I think. No, it was actually 2013. And this story takes place, the first part is actually takes place in Zimbabwe, and the second part of the story takes place in Detroit, Michigan. And it is a story about a girl who lives in this shanty town called Paradise in Zimbabwe. She is just, living her life as a young girl, playing games with her friends, hanging out with her friends, talking about the way people live there. But most of the time we see Paradise from the point of view of this girl called Darling, and we see how she perceives the world around her, how she perceives the chaos, the violence, the strife that is happening around her at the time, and the way that she's trying to make sense of all of those things with her own lack of experience because she's a child, and probably inadequate knowledge on the world around her. And I think it's really it is really conveyed in a very beautiful way, and it really feels like you're seeing the story from the point of view of a child. Also, in the first part of the novel, we also see Darling's relationship with the people around her, her friends, her family, her absent father who came back a few years later and being sick of AIDS, her mother, and many people in her community. And I thought that it was just so engaging because the narration has a lot of energy to it. It just has a lot of momentum, and whenever you read it, it feels like the narration just keeps on coming at you without, having this moment of stopping or slowing down or really lagging. The story just keeps on coming at you, and that is how it feels like reading the story. And then we move on to the second part of this book, where Darling actually moves to Detroit, Michigan to live with her Aunt Fostalina, and so she had to leave. So she has to leave her friends behind back in Paradise. So now we see a new story from Darling, where she learns how to cope as an immigrant in a totally foreign country, a country that she used to has all of this really dazzling expectation on, and to see how it actually fits with her expectation, and how she kind of feels frustrated at certain aspects of the country, how people view her as a person who is not from the US. So this book is also about the immigrant experience, and I think that it's conveyed in a really nice way, although this time we also start to see snippets of narration that I think is not from Darling's voice. I think one of the narration actually comes from an older person, and I think another narration, for one really short chapter, is like a general narration coming from a third person omniscient. But those two different really short bits of narration feels much more mature compared to Darling's narration in the second part of the book. So you could say that this book is some kind of a coming of age story because it follows the main character since she's a young girl all the way until she's a teenager, and you would expect to see some sort of learning curve or um, growth or development happening with Darling. And I think many people will probably say that there isn't really much happening for the most part this book with Darling's character, which I personally kind of agree because that does not seem to be like the focus of this story for the most part. But at the same time, I actually uh, did see like this really subtle but incredibly powerful way that Darling grows as a person somewhere at the end of the book. And I'm not going to talk about what kind of growth that is, but I definitely think that that growth is really awesome. It is something that makes me feel like this character is having this really um, big moment in her life where she finally realizes something. Basically, it kind of has something to do with her own perception on what is suffering, what is identity, and stuff like that. And I thought that part was just so incredible. So overall, I actually gave this book 5 stars because I just really love so many things about this book. The narration is wonderful, the characters are wonderful, the story itself is wonderful, and the conclusion is also quite beautiful, and it's just a really wonderful book. It has been a joy to read this book, and I'm really glad to have picked this up. So that's it for now for my comments on NoViolet Bulawayo's We Need New Names, and I'll see you again in another video. And until then, take care and bye bye.